Here's the podcast script. Why older people are divorcing more than they used to. It's a question that the New York Times recently dug into, and the answers are more layered than you might expect. Meet Alan Hickenbottom. He's 67, worked in renewable energy for decades, and in 2021, after more than 30 years of marriage, he and his wife filed for divorce. And here's the thing, he still considers that marriage a success. They had fun early on, raised 2 kids, built a life together. But when the kids left for college, Alan looked around and realized he and his wife had become more like colleagues and roommates than romantic partners. 2 years of marriage counseling didn't change that. And then came the question that, it turns out, a lot of people his age are asking themselves: he might have another 40 years ahead of him. So what does he want to do with them? Alan is far from alone in asking that. Rates of what researchers call gray divorce splits among people 50 and older have doubled in the United States between 1990 and 2010. Today, nearly 40% of all divorces happen between people over 50. And while divorce rates have been dropping across most age groups in recent years, there's one exception: Americans 65 and up are actually divorcing more, not less. So why is this happening? Experts point to a few converging forces. The first is longevity. Susan Brown, a sociology professor at Bowling Green State University, puts it plainly: this generation is living longer than any before it, and that changes the math on whether you stay in a marriage that isn't really working anymore. Justin Garcia, executive director of the Kinsey Institute, takes that even further. He points out that as a species, we are in longer relationships than our ancestors ever experienced. Lifelong monogamy once meant a few decades. Now there are couples who've been together 50, 60, even 70 plus years. That, he says, is evolutionarily unprecedented. The second force is a shift in what people expect from marriage itself. Baby boomers who got married young, partly because that was simply the norm, are now living in a culture where marriage is seen as a vehicle for love and personal fulfillment, not just a practical partnership. Claire Camp-Dush, a sociology professor at the University of Minnesota, says our collective tolerance for staying in a SOSO relationship may simply be going down. Sociologists have a term for these kinds of marriages: empty shell marriages. Relationships where there's no real connection or vitality left, but couples stayed together anyway, for the kids, for financial stability, or out of fear of stigma. That calculus, for many older Americans, is shifting. For women especially, there's another factor: menopause. Rebecca Thurston, Associate Dean for Women's Health Research at the University of Pittsburgh, describes it not just as a hormonal change, but as a loss of tolerance. You've spent years taking care of kids, parents, partners, and suddenly a kind of clarity sets in. Thurston says she's lost count of how many patients have told her they just want to get in the car and drive, and leave it all behind. One woman in the article, Ruchi, hit her breaking point when her husband of 20 years forgot her 50th birthday entirely. No card, no dinner, nothing. And she found herself asking, when did I stop being a person? Of course, gray divorce isn't easy. Older adults tend to take a bigger financial and psychological hit than younger people do. Men are more likely to repartner afterward, partly because women outlive them, narrowing the dating pool, and also because women are often simply less interested in remarrying. That said, online dating has opened new doors. 14% of Americans in their 60s, and 12% of those 70 and older, say they've used a dating app. Alan Hickenbottom, for his part, dated a lot after his divorce before meeting his fiancée. He and his ex-wife remain friendly. Gail Emig, who separated from her husband of 40 years at 73, hasn't remarried and says she finds joy in her friendships, her independence, the quiet that comes with finally having space to breathe. And Ruchi? She's been saying yes to work trips she used to skip, and cooking spicier food again, something her husband never liked, and she describes it as a small act that feels enormous. Whatever you make of the trend, it's clear that for a growing number of older Americans, the question isn't just whether a marriage has lasted, it's whether it still has life left in it.